Brennus worth getting? Absolutely not. Not a chance. Not a chance worth getting. The Brennus is just like a fusion of the Henry playstyle and the Marseille playstyle. No armor. I just don't see any reason. It's not even a bad ship. I just don't think there's any reason to get it, right? I don't think there's any reason to get it. Henry does what Brennus does. Well, if your goal is to play like a Henry, the Henry is twice as good as Brennus. If your goal is to play like a Marseille, the Marseille is twice as good as Brennus. The Brennus is good in the way that it can do both. Like the Brennus is pretty okay at kite farming HE, and it's also pretty okay at pushing in and blapping cruisers, right? So the idea of the Brennus is like you're a Henry hull, but with like really good. I mean, the guns are cracked. Like, don't get me wrong, the guns on Brennus are cracked. It's like having a bit worse guns than Marseille, but they have improved pen angles. But overall, it's just like if you want to push and Citadel things with strong AP, the Marseille is better. And if you want to kite and farm with HE, then the Henry is better. So you can just unlock the Henry and the Marseille for free and kind of like, yeah, it's a good. It's like it's a good ship, right? I mean, we'll get to like if it's good or not later, but worth getting, absolutely not. Worth getting Colbert, bro. Colbert is absolutely one of the first Research Bureau ships to get. Would you consider it worth more to spend research points on RB ships or unique upgrades generally? Generally, in the year of our Lord 2025, probably upgrades. Because, like, and I probably didn't think that 4 or 5 years, like 3 or 4 years ago, because I didn't think there were that many unique upgrades in the game that were like obscenely good. But like we now have like Columbo ledge mod, Guden ledge mod, Elbing ledge mod, UU Minnow, right? There's a lot of ledge mods that turn the ship into the super ship version of the ship. And that wasn't really true. Most of the ledge mods were kind of like side grades or trade offs. Even the good ones, right? Even the good ones. Columbo ledge mod is basically a PR ship. Yeah. But Colbert is just like, again, I think it's the second most fun cruiser in the game after Austin. It's good. It's very unique. Nothing has the kind of DPM open water in tier 10. Like, absolutely crazy worth getting. Crazy, crazy good worth getting. It's so fun and strong. Like, there's a lot of ships that are almost as fun as Colbert, but they're nowhere near as good. But Colbert is actually good. Like, Colbert actually does, like, farm crazy damage. If you, God forbid, you catch DDs at close range, they're just insta-dead, right? Super enjoyable ship to play. That looks like Druid. Druid worth getting? Probably not really at all to me. Again, now, again, this is not that the ship is good or bad. It's like I don't think it's worth getting. The reason I don't think it's worth getting is what is Druid? Druid is a support destroyer. So you either want to play it in a division with a ship like Shima or YY. I would argue that playing Druids solo in randoms is or ranked is borderline griefing the fuck out of your teammates. Destroyer. But like worth getting, when it comes to DDs that effectively don't have torps, there's like Sherman for Cole, there's Hull for research points, which we'll get to. And they're just kind of like more interesting ships, really, I think. Gibraltar, baby. S, no. I mean, realistically, Gibraltar's probably like not worth getting at all. It's one of the worst cruisers in the fucking game, like for sure. Definitely, this is one of the very worst cruisers in the entire game. But the one thing that I will say about Gibraltar, my shit is going haywire. The one thing I'll say about Gibraltar is it's very unique. It is very unique. Like, there is still no ship in the game that has Gibraltar's bundle of gimmicks. I don't count the smoke as a gimmick really at all. The two main gimmicks on Gibraltar are the guns and the engine. The guns are, they have the same characteristics as Minotaur, even like the arming threshold, which is crazy. Like these guns arm on destroyer superstructure and they hit for like 6k a shell, right? So like you can wipe Bardides like Gibraltar at close range is worse than Venezia is to destroyers. Like it's actual nightmare fuel. And it's also nightmare fuel if you're in a super light cruiser. You know, the ultralights like Smolensk, Jinan, because it overmatches them. But it's literally a free kill for battleships. I would honestly like put it above at least it's more unique than Brennus. If you just want a challenge, if you are a masochistic cruiser player who like loves a challenge, then I do think that like Gibraltar's in a interesting spot. It's a really bad ship that's somewhat fun to try to make its gimmicks work, if that makes sense. Like it's terrible, objectively terrible, but it's terrible in a way that can be fun. Um Hector's an interesting one. I actually think Hector's like kind of really good now cuz it's gotten a bunch of buffs. But with that being said, like is it worth playing? Like why would you play Hector when you could play Cerberus, I guess is the problem. I think before the Cerberus line came out, Hector might be like honestly up here in worth getting because you get a crawling smoke with solid DPM and decent torps, and now it gets the super heal, just kind of mega. Like I don't think it's a bad ship by any means, but like, is it worth getting? I don't know. I mean, Cerberus is like a really low smoke fire penalty, obviously way better guns, the same smoke, the same torps, kind of a deal. So like, would you invest research points in a tier 9 light cruiser version of a free tier 10 tech tree ship? Like probably don't think that you would. I don't know. Hull is, whoa, probably somewhat worth getting. Even though the playstyle of Hull is not very entertaining to me, it's probably the best at the playstyle, which is like permanently farming in the kite. Like it's like of the ships that grief your team by solely farming damage, it's definitely better and more interesting and fun than Druid. It's definitely like better, more interesting and fun than Ragnar, I think. It's definitely better, more interesting and fun than Kava. So like even as someone who doesn't really enjoy AFK perma kite farming, the Hull is more interesting and it's so relaxing to play, like zero skill required, never punished for a mistake. I do think like definitely like because you think of all that, you could get Ragnar, you could get Druid, you could get Khabarovsk, right? Those ships all like AFK farm most of the game. Like Hull is probably by far the most worth of those boats. So probably leave it in B. We'll revisit. It's just you can do some really silly things in Hull, and it's not just citadeling the cruisers, right? Like you can citadel battleships in Hull, like which is kind of insane. Like if we pull up the old ship tool real quick, like the penetration that Hull has at close range is silly and goofy. It's more pen than Des Moines. I talked about this in the review, but I obviously didn't show ship tool. But like at 2 kilometers, for example, Hull has almost 50 millimeters more pen. Like 473 millimeters of pen. Like at 1 kilometer, you can Citadel Kremlin. Hull can actually Citadel Kremlin at 1 km. Hull can Citadel like basically every BB in the game if it can get that close, which is hilarious. Hilarious stuff. So that's like kind of fun to try to go for sometimes. I mean, you probably shouldn't overall, but it's more interesting is my point. The AP and the semi-usable torps make it more interesting than the other non-torpedo perma farmers. That is Illinois. I think Illinois is pretty good. Illinois, I would definitely put Illinois in A tier before the Pan American ships existed, because Illinois' primary strength was that it was like an S tier rank ship. But I do think it's that ability has dropped off because of the Pan Am BB bullshit. So for now, I'll put it in B. It's really good. Illinois is really good. Illinois is like uniquely good against other battleships. Very, very uniquely good. Let me get this shit out of the way. It's fucking bothering me. Illinois is like very, very uniquely good against specifically other battleships because you tank as well as them, but you pump out like way more damage into them than they can pump into you. But it's really good. You have like the same heal that the Iowa has, but you have less HP. You have like almost Des Moines DPM, and especially if you're bow in, you have like kind of crazy DPM, and then obviously you get like the armor. It's definitely very good. Ohio's probably still at least A worth getting. I'm trying to think. I mean, Ohio has definitely dropped off. I would say mainly because of the Vermont changes. Because Ohio at the time was the only ship in Tier 10 that had the 40-second heals and the really good and accurate guns. I'm going to put it in the lead on B for now. I just don't really play it much anymore. Because it's in a weird position. Because, like, if you build full tank, full main gun spec Ohio, you're in a worse version of Vermont. But then if you build it for secondaries, you're just not in as good of a boat. So it's in a really weird spot where, like, you should, I guess, in theory, build it as a hybrid with secondaries. But then it's not as good as if you build it for main guns. But then if you build it for main guns, the Vermont is, like, way better if you know what you're doing. So it's kind of tough. Paolo Emilio, dude, I think Paolo Emilio is like so worth getting. Is it S tier worth getting? Like, again, this is worth getting in my opinion. I had to create a new account on EU or Asia. What ships do I miss the most? Like, I would definitely miss not having Paolo. Paolo is just so much fun, man. Paolo is like is borderline too much fun, if such a thing is possible. It's so fucking fun though. So fun. It's still very unique. There's still no destroyer that has a fuel smoke that can dev strike everything. Put it in A for now. For now, we'll put it in A. Super fucking fun. Super fun. And honestly, like, pretty good in ranked. I actually think in ranked, the Paolo is unironically good. It's not even just a meme boat in ranked. Because, like, in ranked, you don't really get focused by half the enemy team at once like you do in randoms, you know? So, in Paolo, when you played in ranked, like, if you're pushing the flank and let's say you get outspotted by, like, Kitakaze, right? Obviously, he has way more DPM than you, but you have an 8k sap volley if you hit all your shells. So, like, if he opens up, you actually make him fucking pay for it when you go dark. So, and then you can kind of keep doing that. The Paolo is, like, very surprisingly good at trading destroyers in ranked because you get a lot of pure 1v1s, and if they decide to open up, you fire 1 or 2 sap volleys, and you have tons of HP for tier 9. It's not even bad in ranked. Sevastopol, bro, why would you ever get this boat? Like, why would you ever get this ship? I honestly don't know why you would ever get it. Like, I really don't. But the radars, yeah. I mean, yeah. I it's so fun, dude. It's too fun to miss out on. Like, you can have Paolo Emilio, I think, is one of the only boats where you could have a 40% win rate in Paolo and have the time of your life. Like, this boat is fun even when you're bad. But Sevastopol is, like, in a horrific state. I have truly no idea why it gets no armor. Like, it gets no armor, and there's no reason for it to not get armor. It gets a fast DCP, but on a fucking cruiser. Like, and so you have limited DCP on a cruiser, so then you have to take Superintendent to get the extra DCP, which gives you an extra heal that you'll never use, because the heal is, like, basically fucking unusable, like, for those not aware. Oh, Why am I searching it here? Like the heal takes 4 years to reload. It's a great heal. I mean, okay, you know what? That's not true. It's not even a great heal. Like, I don't know why Sevastopol just can't have a normal. This is a normal super heal. If we look at Goliath, right? A normal cruiser super heal is a 40%, 2% per second heal. This is a typical super heal. 20-second duration, 2% healed per second. Zombie heal in a game where BBs burst you for free. Basically. But, like, this heal is unironically dog shit. Like, they did buff the reload time of it, but they also, if you guys remember, this heal used to be better, but it took longer to reload. 60 seconds? Yeah, but it's 60 seconds because it's a Russian DD heal. This is a Russian destroyer heal that just heals 30%. That's why it's so bad, though. This is a Grozovoy heal if Grozovoy healed you for 30% instead of 14%. Like, it's one of the worst, unironically, one of the worst cruiser heals in the game. Because, like, a normal cruiser heal is, like, say, 16%, right? 14%. But you get it back in 30 seconds, and then it's not the worst heal in the game, but it's pretty shit. But this is the ultimate issue. Like, this is unconscionable to me. The DCP on Sevastopol is almost, I think, the number one problem that it has. You have to run super, because, like, this heal isn't enough healing and it doesn't reload fast enough for you to heal fire damage effectively. So you kind of, like, have to run Superintendent just for the extra DCP and the extra speed boost, because the speed boost also only lasts for a minute if you run speed boost mod. So, like, it's super gimped on its consumables. I think, like, totally artificially. I have no idea why. Because at the end of the day, this has the same problem that Siegfried has, which we'll get to, is that you invest so much to get this pinpoint dispersion that theoretically blaps broadsides, but then, like, BBs don't get citadels anymore, and you know, cruisers get overpenned half the time. It's just in a shit spot. There's no this thing could just have Goliath seal and it would be fine. If Wargaming just gave this, like, the same heal Goliath had, I think it would be a pretty decent ship. But and it's no armor, like, that's the thing. It's, like, covered in 30, 25 upper bow. Not good armor at all. And it just doesn't do anything to BBs. Like, yeah, you can sail around the map, and if cruisers fuck up their angling, you can blap them. But, like, at the end of the day, you do negative damage. You literally heal battleships, and you have 0 tools to fight destroyers because you have 6 guns, and your HE doesn't hit that hard. Like, yeah, I mean, you know, it hits for, like, maybe 5,000, but you only have 6 guns. The reload is shit. Like, these cruisers with super small gun count, like Siegfried and Sevastopol, are just fundamentally flawed in their game design. They're designed to fit a game situation that existed like 4 years ago. Sicilia is a good ship that is not remotely worth getting. I think it's a good boat. I actually think it's fairly good. Fairly strong battleship. There's just no reason to get it, which is unfortunate. Sicilia, to me, is what the Colombo Ledge mod should have been. Sicilia gets sap secondaries that are dog shit, so the secondaries are not an asset on this boat because they're horrible. You should never build for them. You get the same guns as Colombo, but you have HE instead of the god tier sap. So right there, it's basically a tier 9 version of Colombo. And then you get like a 3-second faster base reload. Or maybe 2 seconds. 2 or 3 second faster base reload. So you have more AP DPM than the Colombo. You have dog shit HE. And you lose the sap, and you give up all of that to gain better smokes. The Sicilia smokes are basically the Giuseppe Verdi smoke, which is like the 60-second smoke, and it reloads in, like, I think 90 seconds. It's very fast reloading, the smoke screen. So that's like the major gimmick, is that It reloads a lot faster than Columbo smoke. It's either 2 minutes or 90 seconds reload. I can't remember. Um, the problem with that though is like if you guys are Columbo enjoyers, there are whole games you don't even smoke in Columbo. Like I would bet that I average 1 to 1.5 smokes in Columbo. I wish there was a way for me to like look at that in stats. But I would wager that in my average Columbo game, I smoke 1 to 2 times. Because you just almost never need to. And then, so the idea would be like, you're using the smoke. Columbo has smoke? Yeah. You have to give up clicking people for 25k on cooldown to smoke, which is why part of why you never smoke. So it's like, Cecilia's smoke is awkward because now in theory, always having the smoke would like give you good survivability, but Columbo Hull is already so tanky that like the only real value to me, the sole value that Cecilia Smoke has is you're more likely to have it to run away from like a carrier fucking on you. So like it's definitely more survivable than Columbo in unmitigatable damage situations. If this makes sense? So like a sub is perma humping you and a carrier is perma humping you. Cecilia is a lot more survivable than Columbo because in 6 minutes the Cecilia can burn through full smoke cycles in 6 minutes, and the Columbo takes like 8 minutes to burn through 2 smoke cycles. So you're more likely to be able to hide from CVs. But like it's not really even helping you in fights because Columbo does so much more consistent damage that like you're less likely to need to fuck off in a fight. Because the problem with Cecilia is like if they go bow into you, you don't have a way of damaging them, so you have to load HE, and then the HE on Cecilia is like it's not good, boys. It's really just a fucking tragedy, the Cecilia smoke. Dude, I want to say your fire chance on Cecilia is like less than 30%. I don't recall, but it's very bad. You do not start any fires with Cecilia HE. It's just not worth getting. Like, it's not a bad ship, but like, why would you ever play Cecilia when you could play Legmont Columbo? Like, there would truly be no reason to do that to yourself. And then, like, in theory, the other theory of the exhaust smoke on Cecilia is if you have it more frequently, you can use it to make aggressive plays. But then the problem is, if that's your theory, I'm using the Cecilia smoke to make an aggressive play to get in a weird position and blap somebody. Well, then the problem is that's not taking advantage of your improved AP DPM over Columbo, and you're less accurate than Columbo by, with the Legmon 6%. So one Cecilia salvo is worse than one Columbo salvo. Either way, it's like it's less reliable. It's just I don't know. It's weird. Siegfried is probably still sadly just way down here, dude. I got Siegfried a few years ago and I fucking loved it. But that was before subs and before super ships and before all these hybrids and before all these Dutch ships. It's just again, you do nothing against destroyers because best case scenario you can hit them for like 4 to 6k every 25 seconds. That's best case scenario on DDs. Anything that angles to you that you don't overmatch, you like basically just heal them. And the ship is only good in its tier. Like it can't really fight tier 10s at all. And part of the problem is like same thing with Sevastopol. Like battleships in tier 8 and 9 actually get citadels. And so Siegfried has like 12 cam concealment, right? So and you have Bismarck AP, right? Bismarck AP with I think it's cruiser dispersion on this thing. Or it might even be better. I think it's like I don't recall. I'm trying to remember what it is. I think that it's cruiser dispersion that Sevastopol and another thing too about Sevastopol, I will say this. Well, I don't think it's like crazy overpowered like the CC Hive Mind said. Defense is way better than Sevastopol. It's not even funny. So like if you had defense, you definitely would never play these because defense just basically has this better guns than these because of its improved HE on a better reload with more survivability because of the smoke and the heal with torps. Bismarck guns if they were historically accurate, emphasis on the accurate. But there's just no reason to get it. Like, yeah, if you're in tier 8 and 9 lobbies and you get to fight like paid actors in like Monarchs and North Carolinas, right? Then it's like it can be pretty wicked because you can blap even broadside BBs at medium range. But like the problem is in tier 7, 8, and 9, a lot of the cruisers are so skinny with so little armor you like can't even citadel them unless you hit water first. It's very sad. Very, very sad. The Slava. You know, this is probably going to really surprise a lot of people because I hate the playstyle of Slava. I hate it. It's so boring to me. But we're trying to combat our bias. I think Slava is more worth getting than Ohio. And that is not because I think Slava is better than Ohio. I don't. I think Ohio is a much better battleship. But Slava is still incredibly unique. There is no ship in tier 10 that does what Slava does, which is get citadels on BBs at every range. There is no battleship in the game that has the guns that Slava has. So while I don't personally enjoy playing Slava, I find it very boring, and it kind of only does well against bad players. Like, if people go bow into you, you're kind of the worst BB, one of the worst BBs in the game. Slava's exceptionally unique still. There's nothing that even comes close to these guns. They just came out with Taihong, which is a quote-unquote tier 9 Slava. The guns are nothing like Slava guns. They just and Champagne is kind of like the tier 8 Slava a bit, but Slava Citadel is like Yamato at 24 km, bro. Like, there's nothing. Slava just fucks broadside BBs at every single range. You run range mod on Slava because you can Citadel ships at 28 kilometers. It's so unique still. And it probably has the most satisfying guns in the game when you do get the paid actors who go flat to you. Because there really is nothing like getting 40 or 50k on a Montana at 28 kilometers. Like, it is quite the fucking experience. But, like, it's not that good overall because, you know, Slava players hate him. This one simple trick called angling. Vamp 2. Oh, baby. Vamp 2's the number one spot for me. I think it's still the number one Research Bureau ship worth getting. I mean, compared to DD's, there's no competition. What about the Satsuma funny button? Well, let me load it up. Let me load it up. Here's ship tool. Okay. Satsuma versus Slava AP shells. Let's go out to max Slava range. It doesn't even go out that far. Not only does Slava have more penetration than Satsuma, not only does it have more penetration than Satsuma, it has a 1.5 seconds fucking faster flight time. A 1.5 seconds faster flight time. And if we go to main battery, this is Slava's vertical dispersion compared to Satsuma's. Even hitting the funny button on Satsuma, your vertical dispersion is atrocious compared to Slava's vertical dispersion. There's no competition. When you get out to max range, even Wisconsin, this is max range. Like, look at this difference in vertical dispersion. Horizontal, not a huge difference. And in fact, the closer range you get, Slava's horizontal dispersion stops becoming special, or vertical dispersion stops becoming super special. Like, Wisconsin's getting down there. See, look at Wisconsin's horizontal compared to Slava. It's already way better. It's better out to a significant range, in fact, right? Like this is horizontal in the left column, Wisconsin versus Slava. Wisconsin is still beating it because 11% dispersion mod. What's super special about Slava is its vertical dispersion has a very unique decay. It loses vertical accuracy slower than every other ship, right? And you can kind of even see it in real time compared to Wisconsin, which again has excellent dispersion, battle cruiser dispersion. When you get at like 10 kilometers, you can even see if you look at this column here, every time we bump up the range, Slava's only getting less accurate by 3 meters, and Wisconsin is getting less accurate by 5 or 6, right? It's like 5 and 6 versus 3 and 4. And that trend just continues forever and forever. Slava gets less accurate at a slower rate. So when it comes to shooting broadside ships, there is no ship in the game like Slava. Slava's gun, and also it's not just the penetration and the flight time, it's the impact velocity. Like you see this kind of impact speed, right? When we get a little bit lower range, 100 meters a second faster. And the reason why that's mega on Slava is you think about ships that are basically considered impossible to citadel, like Bourgogne Republique. Slava can citadel them at a very respectable range because the shell has the pen to punch through the torp protection, the casemate, and the citadel. But more importantly, it has the velocity to get there before the shell detonates. So, Repub and Bourgogne can't go flat to Slava. They can go flat to almost every BB in the game beyond like 10 kilometers. Like basically every BB in the game beyond about 10 km cannot citadel them, but Slava can. So it's a super, super unique gun experience. Again, not as good as Ohio overall, but Ohio is not a unique gun experience. Like Vermont has better guns because you'd always rather have the same DPM via salvo weight. Vermont is stealthier, has higher platings, has a better heel, better AA, right? It's just a better boat. Slava's is super unique. Again, I don't play it, really. I don't enjoy it, but like I can't deny that worth getting. Like there is no ship like Slava. There's no ship you can load up to emulate the Slava experience. And then this is what the Van speak. There's no reason to get. Why would you get a tier 9 version of a ship that's worse than the tech? There's like 2 different tech tree ships that are better than this in the Dutch tech tree. I don't think there's even much to say about that, especially now that PVO came out. This is basically the tier 9 version of Prins van Oranje, but a lot worse. Like noticeably worse even tier for tier. Don't like okay, and then so let's reorder this. Realistically, as bad as Sicilia is, as bad and not worth getting, it's still a fucking battleship. So you'd still probably get it. Definitely Vamp 2. I forgot. I got sidetracked and I didn't even talk about Vamp 2 is so good, dude. Not only is Vamp 2 incredibly strong in all game modes, it's still incredibly unique. There's still no DD. There's still no high tier DD in the game that has its gimmick suite. Like it's really strong, really fun, very unique. Like you couldn't ask for more out. One of the most fun DDs in the game and strong and unique. Like that's to me like you can't ask for much more if you're trying to get a research bureau ship. And it doesn't play anything like Daring, but Daring will at least teach you how to play Vamp 2 because the guns are the same, right? Like that's why it's part of why Vamp 2 is really nice is you can go from playing Daring to playing Vamp 2 and the guns feel the same. I mean, they're just better, right? Vamp 2 just has like a 10% better DPM. So the guns feel the same. There's no like learning curve, but then you just get like the silly smoke. And honestly, all things considered, the torps aren't even that much worse than Daring. You can even make a case in some situations they're better. Basically, you're trading Daring's heal, which is its survivability, and its consistency, which is its short burst smoke, for better DPM, an all or nothing farming smoke, an all or nothing hydro. That's kind of the trade off there. That's kind of the trade-off there. But this is, to me, again, my account gets deleted. I have to make a new account. The order of ships that I'm getting, like, I'm never getting any ships on D tier. This, right? That doesn't mean they're terrible ships. It just means I would never get them. I would actually probably get Hector over Druid, as insane as that might sound. I would probably never even get Druid again. The only reason I'm putting Druid a bit higher is because if you're gonna play with a Shima YY kind of player, Druid is a mega DD. Druid is an insane destroyer to back up another destroyer in. May I just play what I'm grinding because random is ass anyway? Yeah. Like, even though I don't enjoy Slava, I'm still probably recommending it over Ohio. Because, like, it's just so unique. Druid is fun for 4 games, then Port Queen, too boring. Yeah, it's super boring. Again, playing it with a concealment DD is fun. Like, I've played a lot of games in Druid with Danny because he plays like nothing but YY. And it's like a disgusting DD to back up your DD because the biggest problem that Druid has is battleships and cruisers can run it over because it has no torps and does no damage if they angle. And it can't catch destroyers because it's slow and unstealthy. But as soon as you play with like a Shima or a Yu Yang or a Gearing or something, you totally mitigate the getting rushed because your teammate has torps. You totally mitigate the spotting DD because your DD spots for you. And then you just get to laser beam people with like some of the highest velocity DD guns in the game. Ton of HP, good healing, great smokes, right? It's quite a cockroach of a ship. It's very hard to die in Druid unless you're pushing in 2 aggro against DDs that outspot you. Okay, now you're playing solo in random battles. We don't care up. Is it worth getting? It might have been D tier for worth getting, but you are now playing solo in random battles. Brennus is probably not that bad. See, this is where it changes, right? I think there's no reason to get Brennus, but realistically, is it good or bad in random battles? Like, as far as cruisers go, it's probably like an average cruiser. I mean, you're fast, you have good survivability, you have good guns. Literally convinced myself it's not even B tier. So we're moving it down. Colbert, strong solo in randoms. I mean, it's probably like B. I mean, at the end of the day, unfortunately, no matter how good of a player you are, you can randomly explode in Colbert. I mean, you just can. This, it has nothing to do with skill. A good player will very heavily mitigate the amount of times, but, like, this is not even Sphia levels of not blowing up. It's probably the easiest one of the easiest cruisers to accidentally blow up. It has amazing DPM, but it struggles very hard against specifically open water gunboats with good shell arcs, and it struggles very hard against cruisers with good shell arcs. So, like, you farm BBs like crazy. You farm, like, say, Des Moines, like Bowen's stationary cruisers like crazy in Colbert. The problem is, like, if you've got to engage like a Henry, a Castilla, a Hindenburg at medium range, you just, like, don't really hit them and they laser beam you. So it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult in Colbert to succeed against good cruiser players. Very difficult. Even against good battleship players, you can speed juke and probably live a bit. You can farm even good BB players very successfully. But the real struggle in the Colbert is good cruisers with shell arcs that are better than yours really bully you. Really, really bully you. Even Des Moines is questionable. Yeah, but typically Des Moines will be, like, very stationary. Bow in. So Des Moines will be shooting you with, like, 200,000 HE/DPM, and you will be shooting back with 600,000 HE/DPM. And you'll just cook him. So, like, if the Des Moines is playing positionally, you are going to shit on it in a Colbert. But let's say that Des Moines doesn't have BB Crossfire and he can open water maneuver, then I'll definitely agree with Anarxy that like most cruisers shit on Colbert. The only cruisers that don't shit on Colbert, if assuming they're allowed to play in the open water, are like other cruisers with bad shell arcs, but also worse DPM. Like Colbert, like a ship that Colbert really bullies is like Minotaur. Minotaur gets very hard bullied by Colbert because Colbert pens it everywhere and it gets to use HE and it can angle the Minnow AP, right? But this ship is just very, very, very brutal to play against decent cruiser players. Uniquely brutal against good cruiser players. There's just kind of like nothing you can like. If you have to fight it now, if you fight like a Hindenburg at let's say 10 kilometers, you're gonna shit on them, obviously, right? But let's say you have to fight a Hindenburg at 13 or 14 kilometers, like you're gonna get put in the absolute dirt. Like you're gonna get nuked by that thing. Even just HE spamming, because he'll just hit way more shells than you will, and you don't really pen anything but his superstructure, right? So it's like mostly like a BB positional cruiser farmer. Super fun, pretty good, but overall, like probably not even as good as Austin. Austin just has like more game impact, I think, than Colbert. Druid, strength played solo in random battles. Honestly, one of the worst tier 10 DDs in the fucking game. Like, I don't even think that's debatable. There's going to be someone in here who's like, I have a 65% solo win rate in the Druid. Well, congratulations, bro. John the Ruthless has like an 80 solo win rate in Yodo. Does that mean that Yodo's a good cruiser? I don't think it does. Hot take. I don't think that that does. You know, because a few people are very good in a certain ship, that does not make it good, right? Of the destroyers with guns, the Ragnar is better. The Kaba is better. The Hull is better and gets torps. Like, Druid can be kind of fun if you get to fight light cruisers, but like, it just kind of has no game impact. It has, especially in a lobby where the enemy players aren't dog shit. Like, if the enemy team is not terrible, there is actually nothing that you even accomplish in Druid. You just like smoke up to deprive your team of spotting damage. They angle to you. You do 12,000 damage per smoke screen. No fires, no DCP griefing, no torpedo threat. Any BB or cruiser can just run you over for free. You're like a pretty good deterrence gunboat. So the lobbies you do really well in Druid solo are like if they also have bad concealment gunboats. I met a guy on Reddit. He said I have a 43% in Libertad and 60 plus in Schlieffen, so Schlieffen is better. So yeah, stats have to be, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, I somehow have like a 70 win rate solo in a gear. And that's over like 80 games. Do I think a gear is good? No, I don't think a gear is good. I think for whatever fucking reason, I just don't lose in the gear. Right? Like, just as a brief example, off the top of my head, my win rate in a gear is like crazy high. That ship is not good, and I'm not good at playing a gear. But I just don't lose it. For whatever fucking reason, when I load up a gear, I've got a 2 in 3 chance of winning the game. No clue why. No clue why. It's definitely not my performance in it. I just don't lose in it. Like, I just get blessed. Or I used to. I haven't played it in a while, but like I had a 60, I had like a 70 win rate in a gear when I was a 50% player. Like, as soon as I got that ship, I just couldn't lose in it. That doesn't make it good, because I do good in it, right? Obviously. Gibraltar's strength solo in randoms, pretty much one of the worst cruisers in the game. The only way you're going to get any game impact in Gibraltar over other cruisers is rushing down destroyers. Azur Lane Gear has very big titty. Enemy team is distracted. You kind of like a gear though also? I mean, I did. I haven't really played it in like a year or two. But I used to love it. It used to be one of my favorite boats. My point is, just because I like a ship and I statistically am like a top 0.5% player in it does not make the ship good compared to the other ships you could play, right? Like, honestly, if you want battle cruiser guns, like Azuma is a better boat than a gear overall. Probably Azuma is just better, right? Alaska is definitely better. Like, that's my point. Even among the battle cruiser ships you could play in tier 9, like, there are multiple better choices than a gear. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with this. Like, again, also, like, Gibraltar has a super high win rate on North America because it's only played by sweaty unicums, right? Nobody who is. You will never see a guy playing Gibraltar for more than like 10 games who's bad at the game. Like, it doesn't. They don't exist. Like, bad players who choose to play Gibraltar don't exist. If God is willing, I will reach silver to play a gear. Yeah, and then you just have to play it into Los Andes. God bless. I actually think Hector is like a very decent cruiser. I mean, when it comes to like cruisers in tier 9, especially after it got the super heal buff, like if we pull up oops, I don't want that. If we pull up ship tool real quick and we sort by tier 9 cruisers, and then we sort by HEDPM. Like, the Hector's up here, bro. The Hector has the same HEDPM as the fucking Dalian. Dalian has like mega. Like, you're almost up to Sejong levels, right? But then the difference is that Hector gets a real super heal, right? A real super heal. You get 3 charges base of the crawling smoke gen. You also get a 3 km hydro. You also get fairly decent torps, if I remember right. 12-kilometer torps. Basically, what these are is they're Vamp 2 torps, but you get 8 per side. You get 8, well, not Vamp 2 torps. I mean, they're Daring torps that go 12 km, whatever. But you get 8 torps per side. Like, the Hector's pretty fucking good, man. The Hector is unironically a decent cruiser. Now, again, right, if you remember, I don't think it's worth getting. My worth getting is low because you could just play like Cerberus. Your rank games have a magnet for people to play. Oh, you're saying you attract bads? Oh, well, Godspeed then. Strength in random battles played solo. Hull is probably like a B tier. I definitely think it's griefing your team a lot less than like Kaba, Ragnar, and Druid in most games. Because Hull Torps, like we've been over, are actually usable. Like, you will average more than 1 torp hit per game. You're a serious threat to broadside cruisers. And even if you don't get opportunities to do, big citadel damage to broadside cruisers, it's the fact that you can that really fucks with people. Pretty decent at fire starting. You pen BB nose and ass. So even in super ship games, right? That's like, again, a problem with Druid is in super ship games, like, you are really a dog ship boat because all the super ships just get like 20-30% more HP and you don't do any scalable damage to them. Yeah. Illinois in randoms played solo is probably a very strong B. Because, like, realistically, Illinois is kind of better at HE spamming than almost any open water cruiser in tier 9. Like, you could play the Rhone or you could play the Illinois. It sounds pretty funny when I say it like that, doesn't it? You could play Rhone or you could play Illa fucking Noi. Kind of funny. Kind of funny. It's like a really good positional battleship because it's so hard to push it in BBs. Again, like, Illinois struggles very hard against 2 types of ships. You struggle very hard against maneuverable cruisers, and you struggle very hard against gunboats. Because at the end of the day, you have, Des Moines shell arcs. So, like, if a cruiser with decent maneuverability is spamming you at like 14 to 18 kilometers, you kind of just can't hit them. And then you have like no chance, right? Like, if a Mogador, even if you're in same tier 9, like, what the fuck do you do in Illinois if Mogador is farming you? You will never hit a single shell on it, right? So that's to me why like it can't really be A, because to me A tier ships are at least good. They might not be the best or one of the best, but they're at least good in all situations. And Illinois is undeniably horrible getting spammed by open water gunboats and horrible getting spammed by maneuverable open water cruisers. But it has a lot of game impact if you play it smart in a positionally strong position. Positionally strong, Jesus Christ. In a strong position. Because it's just so challenging. Like, there's kind of no BB in tier 9 that really wants to push it. Because it's just going to get pumped so much damage out into it. And it's going to take too long, right? Unlike a Des Moines, where if you push a Des Moines in your Iowa and you get in its mouth, right? You run your Iowa up to the Des Moines and shoot it in the bow at 2 kilometers, you're probably going to blow it the fuck up. But you can't do that to fucking Illinois because it's an Iowa hull with a harder to hit citadel, right? So trying to push this thing in a battleship is pretty AIDS. It's also very hard to YOLO in a destroyer for the same reason, because one front gun volley of Des Moines HE or Illinois HE is like a lot of battleships whole salvo, but then it has a great reload, right? So it's hard to push out in a torp boat. It's hard to push out in a battleship, but it does struggle very hard against maneuverable HE spamming cruisers and gunboats specifically. Ohio in randoms played solo is definitely at least A tier. Is it S tier? Vermont is better in randoms. Legmont Colombo is better. Libtard is better. I would personally argue Montana is better in most games than Ohio. But that's not many ships, right? That's not many ships I can even think of that are as good or better. I'm trying to think. It's really good in randoms. I think Ohio is better in randoms than it is in ranked, personally. Because it's the long-term survivability, the consistent guns. We don't really care about the secondaries that much. I don't know. We'll leave it in A for now. I think we'll leave it in A for now. But it's definitely like a very strong BB in randoms. Well above average. Yo Pebbles, thank you for subscribing with Prime. I appreciate that. Paulo Emilio played solo in random battles. Realistically, it's pretty bad. It's pretty fucking bad. You don't do any destroyer rolls. You also don't farm. You're entirely reliant on YOLOing a minimum of 2 people successfully. If you're going 1 for 1 in Paulo, you're trolling your team. You have to go 2 for 1. In my opinion, you have to go 2 for 1 in Paulo. However, one thing that is kind of underestimated about Paulo is it's kind of a good support DD. Because at the end of the day, if you can team, like let's say you spawn on a flank with a Yugamo and you team up with him, like you kind of crack in half every boat you get 2 salvos off on. So it's not like a completely useless boat when it can't torp. Because at least you do have a hard-hitting sap volley, despite the horrific reload. It's definitely pretty fucking bad, though. It's definitely not good solo in randoms. Is it better than Druid solo in randoms? Tier for tier, I would say it is. I would say tier for tier in randoms, I would rather have a Paulo. If I'm in an all tier 9 game, I would rather have a Paulo with me on my flank than a Druid. Because the Druid's just going to AFK farm. At least my Paulo Emilio might rush somebody, hit some torps, and I can get the kill. I'll put it like top of D for now. It's not good, though. Sevastopol solo in randoms is pretty shit. Definitely one of the worst cruisers you could be in. Definitely, I think, worse than Brennus. Brennus, at least Brennus, HE farms pretty well, which is relevant, especially against super ships. And Brennus has solid torpedoes. Brennus can at least fuck up DDs because it does have hard-hitting HE. with more guns, right? So definitely worse than Brennus, but pretty bad. There's really not a single ship in the game I'm scared of this boat in. Literally not one. There's no DD in the game I don't hate playing against this thing in. There's no cruiser, and there's no, maybe like a Minotaur, to be fair. I would say maybe like Minotaur Brisbane are semi aids to play into Sevastopol. So I will say that. Like if you're in an ultralight cruiser with paper armor, the ship is pretty toxic because it has very fast improved pen angle guns that also overmatch you. But then like the Brennus is kind of better. So I still would be more scared of Brennus in most cruisers. I'll leave it there for now. This is Sicilia, right? And so going back to what I said is think Sicilia is like very a solid ship. I don't think there's so what ships is Sicilia better than? Let's think about this, okay? Of all the battleships in the game, it's definitely better than the GK. It's definitely better in randoms than Republic. See, what I'm doing in my mind is I'm trying to debate, is this a tier list of strength in random battles for internally amongst each other or class based, right? Cuz like if the question is what of these ships is the order they're good in randoms, then like Ohio would be S cuz of all of these ships, it's probably one of the two best in randoms. But among tier 10 BBs, I don't think Ohio is among the 3 or 4 best in randoms. So that's kind of, I guess, we should have added that at the start of doing this. Is like, I'm not comparing these internally to each other in the research bureau. I did that for worth getting. This is more like you're getting this ship. How does it stack up compared to ships in its class, right? So Ohio is like better than the vast majority, but not in the top echelon. And like, right, if that makes sense. Like Gibraltar is probably better than Paulo Emilio, but not compared to other cruisers. Siegfried is definitely like way down here. I'm actually putting it above Sevastopol because I do think in tier 9, Siegfried is better than Sevastopol is in tier 10. Because Siegfried is actually very tanky against low caliber battleship AP more than Siegfried or more than Sevastopol. It's probably overall more resilient against fires than Sevastopol because it doesn't have limited DCP. It has guns that are basically identical. Sevastopol just gets improved penetration angles. But this is a whole tier lower. Like it basically has the same guns at a whole tier lower, just without the improved pen angles. So I'd say tier for tier, Siegfried is probably very marginally better than Sevastopol. Slava in randoms played solo. I'd say is at least a strong B. I'd say we're at least a strong B for Slava. Probably about a B. I think it's pretty good in randoms. Definitely not as good as Ohio overall, especially for how I play. But regardless of how you play, like Slava will get you very consistent, decent game impact. Slava's ultimate problem is if aggression is required like endgame, there's kind of nothing you accomplish because you have no gun power, you don't have 30 mil overmatch, you don't have good DPM, you have a shit hull, right? But overall it's like pretty solid in randoms. Vampire 2 in randoms played solo. At minimum A tier. Is it S tier? What destroyer is better played solo in random battles? We could maybe say like Smolensk is better. Although honestly, like, is it? Smolensk's easier to play. Smolensk is way easier. Smolensk requires very little skill to play. So it's a lot easier to play. It's more matchmaker resilient. But honestly, like, is Slava actually more game impactful than a well-played Vamp 2? It's kind of hard to say. Vamp just has a lot of game impact, not just contesting caps against DDs, but like because of the crawling smoke, you get to perma-farm people in their mouth, and they could never push you out of the smoke because it never, right? You have 2 minutes of smoke, and the smoke goes where you go. So, like, you can't just, oh, fuck, the vamp is smoking up at 9 kilometers from my Hindenburg. Let me push the smoke, right? If it was a gearing, you could do that. If it was even a daring, you could do that, but you can't do that to vamp. You can never run it away from its smoke because it'll always smoke itself again. It's really good. It's really, really, really fucking good. This thing is just honestly whatever. I'll put it in like super low C because it's probably better than these ships tier for tier. I'm trying to think though. It feels weird to not put any of these ships in S tier as far as strength and randoms, but like I can list a lot of BBs better in randoms than Ohio. Again, Vermont, Libtard, Ledgemog, Colombo are hands down better overall than Ohio in randoms. But Ohio is probably better than like most of the other ones, right? Like Ohio is definitely probably better than 30 out of 40 BBs in the game in randoms. I feel weird to not put these in S because they're so head and shoulders above the rest of these ships as far as strength. You know what? Okay, so maybe we'll inflate the list just a little bit and kind of factor in we are among the research ships. So we'll put these two in S, and then we'll maybe like bump up the Illinois to A. Because Illinois is really good. Like when it comes to tier 9 BBs and randoms, Illinois is definitely among the best. The problem is it's the same issue that like Mecklenburg has a little bit. Is like there's a lot of situations in Illinois where a moron goes flat and you just don't have the pen to sit it. You know, we're not never compromise. We don't compromise on this channel. Yeah, I don't really think because like I'm trying to think in random battles like is Gdansk better than Vamp 2? Probably. Is Smolin better than Vamp 2? Probably. Is Z42 better than Vamp 2? Probably. Is Daring better in randoms overall than Vamp 2? Again, probably yeah. It probably is overall better in random. That's probably too many DDs that are better than Vamp 2 in randoms for me to put it S. Gun build Ohio is the correct build in randoms. Well, that's a difficult question, Snow, because if your goal is just perform as well in Ohio as you possibly can, then yeah. No, now, to be clear, Ohio doesn't trade gun build for secondaries. Ohio trades survivability for secondaries. That's part of what makes the USN secondary BB so overpowered is that like Rhode Island and Ohio can take secondary range for free. They don't give up gun performance. So the question isn't do you build Ohio for guns or secondaries? It's do you build it for extra healing, extra survivability, right? So what you typically do on Ohio, you take secondary range in slot 3 for free because all you're really giving up is range. You don't really need it anyway. It's fine. And then what you typically do is on your captain on Ohio, you give up either improve repair party readiness and the 4-point healing. You give up a 3-point and a 4-point skill that are survivability related. So you take the 7-point secondary skills, those two skills at the bottom, and then to get those two skills, you give up fire prevention, survivability, or concealment, and you give up improved repair party readiness. So you give up a substantial amount of tanking in Ohio to build secondaries. You're either spotted from farther away, which means it's harder to push and use secondaries, or you give up the heal skill, right? So Ohio obviously needs better turret traverse, you fool. Ohio is just really easy to play. Like, I would say that's the main difference between Ohio and Vermont. Well, I think that Vermont is better if you know what you're doing. Ohio is a lot easier to play. You don't have to worry about the turrets being turned the right way. You don't get punished that hard for missing a salvo because with just a little bit of AR, it's like a 24-second reload, right? Late to the stream, will this be clipped and posted on YouTube? Yeah, I will, Maple. So Ohio is like less potentially as good as Vermont, but it's a lot easier to play. Like, and you'll notice this too. Like, really bad players won't ever have a good Vermont game, but really bad players will have got like, bro. You can look at like anyone who does replay reviews. Like, bro, look at some Jingles reviews of people playing Ohio. There are like 46 win rate players who have done 300k in Ohio. It's a really easy ship to play because you're not crutching on that one salvo being perfect, right? Like if you're in Ohio versus Vermont, if you whiff that one broadside opportunity, like it ruins your whole day, whereas it doesn't really in Ohio. Also, the hybrid build in Ohio, when you make a bad play and get stuck, it makes you more immune to getting pushed because the secondaries are pretty good, right? As a bad player, I can confirm that Ohio is good in my hands. Yeah, I think Ohio is good in everyone's hands. It's just not as good in a really good player's hands as something like Vermont, I think. Um, yeah, I don't know. It just feels weird to not put any of these in S, but that's kind of how I feel about them. I do think that like all things being equal in most games, Smoland, Daring, Gdansk, Z42 are going to have more game impact. They're going to be stronger ships than Vamp 2. They're more versatile or more resilient in some way. Because like Vamp 2 is 100% unplay. Like for example, right? Vamp 2 is 100% unplayable into Gdansk, Smolensk, and Z42. You cannot play this boat against those. You don't accomplish anything, right? There's really like nothing you do against those ships. And to me, an S tier ship is an over like a now to be clear, Ohio and Vamp 2 are both overpowered, right? This is an overpowered gunboat, this is an overpowered BB. But there are situations where they're like significantly outclassed by other ships. And I don't think that's true of Gdansk, Smolensk, and Z42. I think that those ships fighting each other, it all kind of makes a bit of sense, right? Like Smolensk pushing a Z42, if they just trade open water, like Z42 does more damage to it, but Smolensk is the heal, right? So it can get away. But then the flip side of that is if Smolensk takes a bunch of damage, it can't really open water farm. Whereas if Z42 takes a bunch of damage, it can smoke farm. So like there's trade-offs. Whereas Vamp 2 does not have durability because it's a low HP, no heal gunboat. It also doesn't have matchmaker resiliency because if there's nothing but radar cruisers and there's a ton of AIDS gunboats, then you kind of don't do anything. You need a tier 10 Sun Yat Sen that is out, dude. Like, I would, yeah, people rage about turret swaps, but bro, imagine Kremlin turret swapped for Yamato 460s with that dispersion. Getting chills just thinking about it. Getting chills. Yeah, Sun Yat Sen is like, now that I think about it, Sun Yat Sen is like the only battleship in the game with battle cruiser cracked dispersion on overmatch guns with armor, right? Because like Incomp and Sarugi and Adatara and Bungo and all these guns that have overmatch and pinpoint dispersion, they all have a shit hull. Sun Yat Sen is like the only one that doesn't have a shit hull. I mean, the hull is like way better even than Georgia, right? It's got a great hull. Turret swaps are great fun a lot of the time. I agree, dude. I think turret swaps are so poorly, unfairly maligned. Some of the my like Vamp 2 is a copy paste gearing. Vamp 2 is an amazingly fun, strong, and interesting destroyer, right? Now, this Cecilia is an example of a shit clone, right? This is a shitty clone because it doesn't do anything interesting, right? Slava is another example. Slava is a basically a Kremlin turret swapped with some armor thinned, right? But like the hull, the profile of the hull, like essentially you are a Kremlin. You just have thinner platings, but like and different guns, right? Like Illinois is basically just a turret swapped Iowa. It's a lot of fun. It's interesting. It feels unique, right? Like yeah, I think turret swaps get more hate than they deserve. You know, Okay. All right. Strength in ranked. How good is it in ranked? Brennus, please don't. Hector, actually decent. Actually pretty decent, I would say. Um, like really not bad. Druid, please do not do this to your team in ranked. Bro, please. The only thing you're going to accomplish in Druid is like 1 out of 3 games. There's going to be some absolute smooth brain retard in like a Shima who just gets spotted by you and you insta rape him, right? Other than that, the ship does like literally nothing in ranked. Gibraltar in ranked, bro, please no. Oh, that's Colbert. Colbert in ranked is like realistically probably a C tier. Like, it's definitely not good at doing anything because it can't push anything. But at the end of the day, like, at least. Actually, you know what? It's probably D tier. I mean, I sometimes play Colbert in ranked to have a silly, goofy, fun time. But is it good? Is it like a good pick in ranked? Like, definitely not. Definitely not. It doesn't have utility. It doesn't do anything against bat. I don't know. It's really not good. Brennus is probably better. What I will say for Brennus is you get more torps than Henry. So Brennus in ranked is probably better than Henry in ranked. Two, if we're being fair, if you YOLO rush a battleship in Brennus, you actually can torp it. You get, what is it, 6 torps per side in Brennus? Like, you do get pretty solid torp power on each side of your boat. We might, it might be a little fair. We might put it in C. Might put it in C in ranked. Because at least you can YOLO a BB and do some big damage. Right? Broadside cruisers you are going to fuck on. You do pretty okay against DDs with the HE. You at least get the torps, right? So it's probably not as bad as it could be. I think Hector's like pretty okay in ranked. It's like really good because also in ranked in tier 9, at least in NA, I don't know how it is in the other regions. All that gets played in tier 9 ranked in North America are battleships and destroyers. And kind of the only real weakness that the true issue Hector has is getting radared by cruisers. So, Hector's kind of fucking good, dude, in ranked. You don't really get cross mapped, which is a big downside. You get to take a lot of 1v1s. You have mega torps, like actually mega torps. In tier 9, there are very few cruisers with torps as good as Hector. Very, very few cruisers. And you get the super heal. So if BBs don't one-shot you, you definitely can YOLO rush them. And you're going to dev strike every BB in the game with one side of your torps. And you can push DDs because you have God tier DPM and a Hydra to not get torped. I think it's actually a pretty decent cruiser in tier 9 ranked. I really do. Hull in tier 10 rank, please, for the love of fucking God, do not do this to your teammates. Again, if you don't have deterrence of any kind via torp, these torps, like I said, in random battles are not that bad because you just shit them out every minute. You get a hit every now and then. Imagine sync dropping rank and still lose while you're on the same team. It's pretty crazy. Although I have had some teams so bad that me and Danny probably couldn't win 2v6. Sometimes your team really is that bad. But then again, if 2 bad players sync drop in rank, they're increasing their chances of losing, right? Hull definitely over Druid, though, by a mile. Like here's the thing, right? At least in the Hull, you can start fires, you can pen bow in cruisers, bow in battleships, you can pen ships that angle, you have some torps, and you can hunt cruisers, right? Like, I think Hull is griefing your team in rank, but compared to playing Druid, there's no competition which is more griefing your team. Hull might even be more worth playing than Colbert. Like, neither of them is good in ranked at all, but, like, again, Hull in ranked, you can do silly things in. You can get some citadels. Hull can distract enemy in ranked. Well, more than Druid, at least, yeah. It has some torpedoes, so it can get floods. it's probably better than something like Colbert, really, because you're not going to farm as well as Colbert, but you're never going to die. So you're not going to randomly blow up and give your team man down. Like, definitely a bad ranked pick, but probably better than Druid. Illinois is at least an A. Might even be S. The caveat is always, can it fight Los Andes? And Illinois kind of can't. But Illinois does better against Los Andes than the vast majority of ships because it does have good fire starting and it does have the cracked Des Moines AP. So if a Los Andes is pushing you, yeah, it's going to kill you, but you're going to do mega damage back. It really honestly might even be S still. Because, like, what's better in Tier 9 ranked than Illinois? Like, Los Andes is definitely better. Definitely better. Georgia is definitely better against cruisers, but definitely worse against battleships and destroyers. Illinois is better than any non-utility cruiser, like any kind of like Rhone or San Luis is the Tier 9. You're kind of like bringing DPM and tanking into the same fight, which is pretty good. Illinois just really shuts down BBs trying to push. Even again, Los Andes. Like, Los Andes in a 1v1 will probably kill it, but it's a suffering fight for that Los Andes to push into for sure. Illinois is just really good at pushing people at close range and ranked because of just the reload, the AP fire starting. It's pretty good. In Tier 9 ranked, it's pretty fucking good. Ohio's definitely not S in ranked anymore. Especially, I didn't include Incomp, but in ranked, Incomp is way better. You've got Incomp, you've got Libtard, Ledgemont Colombo, Vermont. Those are definitely better in ranked. Probably even the St. Vincent still after the nerfs is probably better in ranked than Ohio. It's hard to say. That one's a tough one. I don't know for sure. The main problem with Ohio is in ranked, 30 millimeter overmatch is less important than it is in randoms. In randoms, there's so many kiting cruisers of Germany and France and these nation and IJN cruisers where 30 mil is mega overmatch, and you don't really see them as much in ranked. You care more. You definitely want like some overmatch, but it's nowhere near as important in ranked. It really isn't. There's not that many Des Moines and Salems in ranked. There's not that many Hindenburgs these days. And again, Vermont is better against those ships anyway. And the problem is that Ohio is kind of like uniquely good at 1v1ing BBs. There's kind of two things to me that Ohio's like really good at. It's really good at 1v1ing battleships at close range because its secondaries perma-light fires and it has improved healing. And then Ohio's really, really good at fucking on cruisers that don't have armor. The problem is in tier 10 ranked, the cruisers are very often Russian and it doesn't matter. You'd rather have shell count of like Montana even. And then the BBs that get played in ranked are like people just spam libtard in tier 10 ranked and like permalighting fires on them doesn't matter that much and your healing's not special, or like you fight against Incomp and it bullies you. Like Ohio does get very hard bullied by quite a few boats, whereas for example to me the Illinois only really gets hard bullied by one ship, which is Los Andes. In tier 9 ranked, the only battleship that really clowns on Illinois to me is Los Andes. Whereas in tier 10 ranked, like a good St. Vincent player puts Ohio in a box. A good Libtard player, a good Ledgemont Colombo player, a good Incomp player. These ships all like make your life a living hell if they're played by competent players, right? So it's still like very good, but there's too many ships that can like free kill it. Paulo Emilio in ranked is really not bad. I think I put it in D tier for randoms, but I think it's way better in ranked because it's a lot easier to accomplish something like I said against destroyers, even crazy gunboats like Groningen and Kitakaze, and maybe Black. It's like You're really fast, and you have a hard-hitting salvo. So you're pushing the flank. You get outspotted by a ship with great DPM like Kita or Groningen, and he opens up on you. And you fire one salvo back in smoke, and in that one salvo, you probably did 4 to 6k damage, and then you get away, right? Whereas in random battles, like that guy would spot you, and his whole team would shoot you, and it would force you to smoke, right? That's the difference between Paulo Emilio and randoms. In randoms, you are typically forced to smoke before you get to shoot, and in ranked, you typically force the DD to shoot, and then you can smoke, right? It's kind of backwards. Irresistible should be good in ranked. Yeah, I mean, Irresistible will be like a tier 10 version of Illinois in ranked, basically, but way better. So yeah, I do think it'll probably be like cracked in ranked. I mean, my prediction is it will get nerfed into the dirt. I hope it gets nerfed into the dirt, but I also do think that it will. Last season I just played Los Andes at tier 9 and I was falling asleep. Yeah. It's sad. Sevastopol, horrific in ranked. Way worse than Colbert. Definitely worse than Gibraltar. At least Gibraltar can sprint into the cap and white bar Aditi. Like, this ship does nothing, dude. Literally accomplishes nothing in ranked. Irresistible, yeah, it's a tier 10 Vanguard with higher HE DPM than any cruiser other than Smolensk, Colbert, and Jinan. Those are the only tier 10 cruisers that will have more HE DPM than Irresistible, but Irresistible will pen 38 millimeters of armor. And Irresistible will have like cracked AP and a crawling smoke. So yeah, it's like the most horrible game design in recent memory. No, Anarchs. It was they said that it has flat ballistics. They actually said it has flat ballistics on 16 234 millimeter guns with a 9-second reload and a crawling smoke with only like 10 kilometers smoke fired. Like, that ship is basically a tier 13 boat. Release 3 different Vanguard versions and don't put Vanguard. Sicilia in ranked, pretty terrible for sure. I mean, again, battleships diff, so it's probably better off in tier 10 than Brennus, but it's pretty terrible. Honestly, in tier 10 rank, the GK is a better ship. Like, I'm trying to think what ship would even be worse in tier 10 rank than Sicilia. As far as BBs go, again, like I said, it's probably better to be in Sicilia than in Brennus just because BB diff. But like, it's terrible. I can't even put it in C, bro. This might be the worst tier 10 BB to take into tier 10 ranked. It's just a horrible version of Legmon Colombo that offers nothing. Republic's very bad in tier 10 ranked for sure. Very bad. Definitely true. One of the worst. But at least in Republic, if you run it down like a chimp, you can actually kind of fuck people up because you do get like the crazy reload. I mean, it's definitely like not good, but it does have some overmatch. So it's not like the worst, but it's pretty bad. I just don't think I can put any battleship in D tier. Like, that is how overpowered BBs are. Like, at the end of the day, you're just going to have more game impact in Sicilia than in Brennus. Almost for sure. Siegfried in tier 9 ranked. Easily D tier. Easily D tier. Is it as bad as Sevastopol, tier for tier in ranked specifically? I would say it's definitely better because you have torps. And in ranked, you actually might get to use the torps. But it's probably worse in tier 9 rank than Gibraltar. Like, again, at least Gibraltar can just, like, sprint into a cap and massacre a destroyer and get some value out of its gameplay. Oh, Gibraltar's really bad, though, too. It might be like this. Maybe we go like that. Slava in ranked, one of the worst battleships in the game. Probably worse than Cecilia in ranked, if we're being honest. Your gimmick of citadeling BBs at very long range is completely pointless because you don't shoot BBs at long range in ranked. It has one of the worst hulls in the game in tier 10 for BBs. It has the worst damage output in tier 10. It's probably like one of the worst battleships you could play in ranked. Probably one of the very, very worst. Vampire 2 in ranked. Excuse me. Ugh. It's definitely at least an A, but is it S? I don't think it's S because I think Gdansk. I think Gdansk, Z42, Smolensk make this ship basically unplayable if they're on its flank. Particularly Gdansk. Gdansk is like really a hell in a cell for Vamp 2 because a good Gdansk player doesn't take concealment. So what happens is you spot Gdansk at 8.2, he radars you, he literally removes a third to half of your Vampire 2. You don't really do meaningful damage back because the range is too great for you to like. The Vamp doesn't shit on anything even beyond like 8-9 kilometers. Like 8 kilometers is kind of the range where like you stop doing useful DPM against things in Vamp 2. So a ship like Gdansk like really hard bullies Vamp 2. Like the game is just straight up unplayable into Gdansk in Vamp 2. Really unplayable. And then like what do? Do you shoot, you get baited super hard because like let's say you're in Vamp 2 and Gdansk radars you when you spot him. What do? Do you shoot? Well, if you shoot, you're not going to do any damage because he's beaming you with railgun shell arcs and you're floating shells at him. So then you're bloom spotted now for an extra 20 seconds and you keep losing HP. So now what do? Do you smoke? So you go dark? Well, if you smoke, then that's 2 minutes. The Gdansk knows where you are. He's going to get 2 radars before that smoke ends. So he's just going to play next to your smoke the whole time, but not in your Hydra range. Like, I can't stress enough how unplayable the Vamp 2 is against a good Gdansk player. It's unplayable. At least with Z42, you don't really have to smoke, right? Because, like, if you're pushing Z42, you're going to outspot him, but then he immediately spots you, and now you're in his Hydra range. So, like, you either turn out and get shit on with AP, or you push into the Hydro to counter Hydro and take the aggressive fight and try to trade. Neither of those are good situations. So I wouldn't say it's unplayable into Z42, but it's really tough. A good Z42 player is very hard to play into with Vamp 2 because you're just given 2 very shitty options of he's going to smoke trap me, so I either try to run away, but then he APs the fuck out of me, or I push into Hydro him, but then if he starts running away, I get drawn in farther to the team, right? Like, there's no good situation there for the Vamp 2. And then the problem with Smolensk is it just runs away and heals. Like, Vamp 2 against Smolensk, the trade is actually quite fair. The DPM trade is very fair. But Smolensk just runs away, heals, and comes back and keeps doing it. So I would say those 3 ships really make Vamp 2's life a hell in a cell. And I don't think it can quite be S tier because of that. And I think when we reviewed the steel boats, I said the opposite. I think I said that Z42 was S tier and then I demoted it maybe to A tier because I said that Vamp 2 might be better. But honestly, like the more I think about it, Z42 is probably better because in radar lobbies it's definitely better. In the cap contest role it's better because of the longer range Hydro. It's better about getting pushed by BBs because you do have a bit more of a torp spread. But Vamp is still very good. Definitely like A. The Van Spike. I mean, it's definitely not good. In tier 9 of all the cruisers you could play, pretty not good. Pretty fucking not good. I mean, especially, boys, I talk about can it play against Los Andes, but you have to remember something. If you play a ship in ranked with airstrikes, you are actually griefing your teammates because if you ever attempt to drop a Pan American battleship, you give it half of its. You know what? It's actually probably very. You know what? If you have airstrikes, you're griefing your team. Full stop. Full stop. You're griefing your team because you can never fight a Pan American BB because you perma F key it. I mean, you can try to fight a Pan Am BB, but you will perma F key reload it. Pretty horrific. So then, like, let's say a Los Andes is fighting your bow in Illinois, and you try to airdrop it with your Van Spike. You literally griefed, like you actually griefed your Illinois player. Like that's how dog shit the Los Andes, like the Pan Am BV design is. You actually are punished for sending damage towards it. That is why even if that ship was not overpowered, that it would be the dumbest game design in the game in my mind. The game punishes you for the sheer fucking hubris of attempting to damage it. Okay. Illinois, really just Los Andes is overall better in ranked. Illinois is just amazing in ranked overall. Vamp 2, there's like maybe three DDs that are better. Ohio, there's probably 4 BBs better in rank, so pretty strong. I think Hector is like one of the better tier 9 cruisers in ranked. Paulo is pretty above average, but it's okay. It's an average DD in ranked. You could definitely get some good game impact out of it. Honestly, if all you do in Paulo Emilio is YOLO and 1-for-1 of Los Andes, you've done your job. Like, if you are in a destroyer and your sole contribution is YOLO torping a Los Andes and dying, you've probably given your team like at least a 55% chance of winning that game. And it's one of the only destroyers that can torp a Los Andes because you're torping at 1.5 kilometers, and even Los Andes can't dodge at that range. And then Sicilia and Slava are probably like 2 of the worst BBs in all of tier 10 to play in ranked. But putting even a decent tier 10 cruiser over them in ranked is like, that's a tough call, dude. At the end of the day, Slava and Sicilia don't get one shot. Like, Brennis will blow the fuck up to any good player, right? Any good player is going to blow this thing out of the fucking water. And then, Hull and Druid both have the same issue of no real torp threat, no real ability to fight destroyers. Druid does good DPM to destroyers, and that's why it's, not all the way at the bottom, because at least, like, you can get matchmaker blessed in Druid, right? Like, let's say the enemy team has Marceau and Sherman. Why do they have those 2 DDs? Nobody knows. But if they had those 2 DDs, your Druid would be pretty good all of a sudden, right? Because you can spot those and kill them. And then these cruisers are just horrifically bad. But I will put Siegfried slightly above them because at least you could like YOLO a BB and, maybe 1 out of 3 games the torps don't perma break. And you get to YOLO them. Ay, dude. All right. Ay, dude. Way too much blabbing. You can't.